Yes, guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well. Tottenham Hotspur have survived another trip to the Arctic Circle, playing Bodø Glimt in the match week 2 of the Champions League. 2-2 was the final score. This score flattered us a ton. Bodø Glimt was easily the better team on the day, played us off the park from goalkeeper to striker. It felt like every single player was playing at the top of their game, while our team was falling behind the ranks like a League One side. It was embarrassing, to say the least. It was hard to watch. It was a dross fest. I was not happy the entire game. But despite the goals, of course, you can't not get excited when your team scores a goal. But I was just so frustrated because we just couldn't get anything together. And so this is the 5 things we learned video, and I am just lost for words because we need to figure something out. Let's get right into it. Lesson number 1, we got to talk about the obvious problem, I think, with this game is our midfield. The midfield that we put out was Pat Matasar, Lucas Bergvall, and Rodrigo Bentancur. This midfield was getting ran through so easily. It felt like Bodø Glimt, every single time they got possession, from minute 1 to about minute 76 or something like that, it felt like they would just cut us wide open with 2-3 passes, and then they're in on goal in some way, shape, or form. It was completely unacceptable. It was so hard to watch players like Pat Matasar and Lucas Bergvall, players that we believe in so much, have such a terrible game. So that was really hard to watch. And I think the midfield, with it being the way it was just the biggest loss for us today. I feel like we lost the midfield battle from minute 1, and we just were on the back foot the entire game because of it. Lesson number 2 is about Thomas Frank, and this one kind of comes from number 1 as well. But I think Thomas Frank underestimated Bodø Glimt and how good they would be. We saw last year in the Europa League how good Bodø Glimt can be and how they have some players that have good quality on the pitch. And I think Thomas Frank put this lineup out, resting some players. Oh, we're going to be good, just going to waltz through Bodø Glimt. I felt like that was the attitude whenever we saw the starting lineup, when we saw Brennan Johnson and Odegaard and Richie as our front 3, not even playing Kudus or Xavi Simons in a Champions League match. Now, not playing them against Doncaster, I totally get, but in a Champions League match, I struggle with that. I think whenever Paulinho came on, Xavi Simons and Kudus came on, yeah, we turned up a little bit, but at that point it was too late. They were already oozing with confidence against us, and we were trying to come back from a game that we should not have been in the first place because of how bad we played. So I think Thomas Frank really underestimated Bodø Glimt this game, and I feel like if we had a stronger midfield like a Paulinho, and I'm not even sure if Xavi had a really good game, but if Xavi was in instead of somebody else, I don't even know what midfield I would have turned out, because when Archie Gray came on, he looked pretty good. But there's just, it's neither here nor there. There's just so many takes that we could grab from that. But I think Thomas Frank really dropped the ball on this one, which is hard to kind of deal with because of what we came from in the Wolves match. Lesson number 3, we have a big drop-off from our starters. Kudus to Johnson, massive drop-off. Xavi Simons to Odegaard, massive drop-off. Even Solanke to Richarlison. Richarlison has had, a few purple patches during his time at Tottenham Hotspur. Injuries kind of kept him out a bit whenever he was really starting to get into the squad a few years ago and last year. But with if you can imagine yourself with Dominic Solanke, Mohamed Kudus, even maybe Xavi Simons on the left, or maybe keep Wilson Odegaard over there. I don't know, but if we had kind of players that starting consistently that weren't injured, like putting Deki Kulusevski back into the lineup whenever he comes back from injury, I feel like that enhances us so much, which we'll talk about in our last lesson. But my personal take was our bench, we're lacking quality in that area. And whenever we need to rotate like we did today, whether it be injuries or whether it be lack of quality, we just don't have it on the bench. And that really scares me. Lesson number 4, this is kind of a better one, but not At the same time, I feel like we rely on Mo Kudus a ton. When he came on the pitch, that's where a lot of our creativity started to really shine. He started creating chances. One of the chances that was unfortunately missed by Wilson Odegaard hitting the bar with his header came from Mo Kudus. We were always trying to find him, and I feel like with whenever we had Johnson on the wing and Odegaard on the wing, we didn't really have that outlet like we did with Mo Kudus, and I feel like he's our number one player. If he's not on the pitch, where's this stuff coming from? I know we were hoping that Xabi Simons was going to be that guy, but it hasn't seemed like he's really been fitting in and really been, he's had great games, don't get me wrong. And of course against Brighton, he had a great game, but I'm talking about like when it comes to matches where we need creativity, he hasn't really shown up the way I've wanted him to. So without Kudus, it's like, where's our creativity coming from? We really need to figure that out because we need to be able to manage games, because if Kudus gets injured, I don't know what to expect from Tottenham Hotspur if he's out. Last but not least, lesson number 5, should we be scared? Because that's 3 games like this, whether it be Wolves, Bodø Glimt, Bournemouth. We need 2 things are for sure. We need signings in January, and we need our injuries to come back. And we need them to be firing when they do come back. Dominic Solanke, Deki Kulusevski, and Kolomoani specifically. I'm not going to mention Madison in this picture because he's out for a lot longer than these guys are. These guys are coming back relatively soon, and we need them to be coming back ready to make an impact because we need it. If Kudus is our only option, like I just mentioned in the last lesson, we're going to have a serious problem. So I think with the signings that we need in January, hopefully we can trust the board to make those signings, like a left winger, like potentially a striker or something along those lines, or of course maybe a center back to cover for Mickey Van de Ven and Romero. I don't think Kevin Danso did a bad job at all. I'm just throwing things out here. We need the signings to hit in January and do well. Hopefully they get done, and we need our injuries back. We need those guys to be coming back to replace the players that A, maybe need a rest, or B, are underperforming. So that's my take. That wraps up the 5 things that we learned video. Let me know the lessons that you learned that I might have missed. Let me know in the comments, like, subscribe, and as always, up the Spurs. God bless.